James, who's doing the roll tonight?
I can do it. I'm here.
Please go ahead, Jackie.
Okay. Counselor Coker. Counselor Coker. I can't hear you guys.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Yeah. Yeah.
Mine is on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Becky, can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, here.
Okay. Counselor Bjornson. Counselor Tarman.
Here.
Counselor Hooker.
Here.
Mayor Cutchin.
Here.
Counselor Kenyon.
Here.
Counselor Hollett.
Here.
Okay.
Thanks, Jackie. Next is item 4, which is additions, corrections, or adjustments to the agenda. Does any counselor have adjustments, additions, or corrections?
9.4, I think we can pull off. That was mine.
Postpone, okay. Counselor Kenyon.
And I actually have several. I forgot my glasses, so it might be. I wondered if we could move all of section 11 to our next meeting. That's our reports. Also, I would like to remove item 13.2 from the agenda. And that is, it's the admin committee resolution. What else did I have? I would like to recommend that all 5 of the, the first 5 of the RTMP TRT items go to the committee, which is number 9.5, 9.8, 9.9, 9.10, and 9.11. And that's all I have. Yes, it's 9.5, 9.8, 9.9, 9.10, and 9.11. I actually wanted to recommend 13 and 15 as well, but I didn't know how the council would feel about that.
It's time critical, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, I realize that. I have a,
So I guess the discussion I have is that the committee really is supposed to look at how we award RTMP
NTRT.
and TRT. There were 3 of these that are actually
Old.
post.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted the committee to, I really want the committee to get up to speed on what all is, required by Lane County, and be able to, and our own particular rules on them, and then be able to make decisions based on that before they come to council to recommend.
James, any staff input on this?
staff is not taking a position on this. I don't know how critical it is for the organizations involved. I mean, they're already from last year, so I guess waiting another month or so wouldn't make too much of a difference, but
I'll ask the council, would you prefer that they stay on the agenda and then we just come to the item and defer it to committee, or you want to just agree to this now? Is anyone opposed to taking these off the agenda and sending them to committee?
Recording in progress.
And is a quorum now, or is there going to be a quorum?
Oh, there will be later today, I hope. And that's the reason I was hoping it would go to committee.
Okay, well, one of my motion was going to be, or one of my changes was going to be to move up the committee appointments 15 to right after 9.1. So I would say that I'm okay with that, unless for whatever reason we don't get a quorum after that,
Okay,
then we will put those back on.
Hold on, let me check.
I have 2 members. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Mr. James Winkelman came to us today and said that he was ill and will not be able to be appointed to our TMP committee or planning commission until the 20th of this month. This happened like 2 hours ago.
I would still have a quorum with that if the other appointment is made, because I am a voting member, even though I only vote in the event of a tie. That matches the quorum requirements.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, she's a voting member.
I am.
So on that, I know it's just each committee is different. So
No, they're all
I-
the same. On that one, on the council person is a voting member, but only votes
in a tie, right, right. Yeah, okay.
Okay, done. Any others?
No, that was all I had.
Okay, it was kind of a tight agenda. It's getting a little bit looser all the time, but changes I had were, again, was already brought up, 9.4 postpone, 9.5 postpone, which was the TRT expenditures. I'd like to move entire item 11 down to just before item 16. So it's the last thing we do, which is the board reports. And if we can't get to it, we don't get to it.
Okay.
We've already previously removed 13.2, which is the admin committee resolution, first reading. I'm going to take item 15 and move it up to after 9.1. And item 15.3, Ms. Thompson is sick in quarters and really can't connect, so she is requesting to postpone till the next meeting. Go ahead.
15.2 as well, Mr. Winkelman.
Okay. Okay. Moving on. Down to public comment. Does anyone on the Zoom platform have a public comment? Please either speak up or raise your hand. You seen or heard? Anyone in the room have public comment?
Hi, Vanessa Tharp. What else do you need to know before I can give you a comment? It's pressed.
Just your address. I guess.
49991 Hills Creek, Oakridge, Oregon. All right, I'm the tree planting chair, and while I understand the request to postpone this, we do have a request from last year that we were putting forward, 9.8. What is 1 month until that event takes place. We've been planning since, last December. And so I just am a little disappointed that that's been postponed and won't be discussed. It didn't get passed or not. I just wanted, because that'll change the budget amount we have moving forward. And that's my concern.
The current year request did not get postponed. It was only the prior year request.
Yes, and I understand that, but that request is for a couple $1,000s that would then impact our budget. So to me, with that event coming soon, that one seems like it would be a great one to be actually discussed now since the event is within a month. I understand if not, but this is now would be the second time I understand that one's been postponed. So will we be able to guarantee it on the 20th meeting? Because I know you guys have been having such robust agendas. So that's just my advocacy there as I continue to work with lots of volunteers to plan a really great event for this community. So thanks for your time.
Are you okay with that, Counselor Kenyon?
I would be okay with that.
All right, so to the time critical nature, that would be 9.8 is back in. Are there any, just to be fair, are there any other time critical ones that have an event that's coming and we'll have problems making ends meet? Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, great. Moving on, mayor comments, announcements, proclamations, nothing today except that be aware that the yard waste debris pickup is still going on. I think the dates had to shift a little bit, but just call Oakridge Air to arrange or request a pickup in front of your house. And also, if you were able to take it to the yard waste disposal, as you know, it's open the first Saturday of every month, but you can also do that by appointment by calling and making an appointment, and they will give you a key to go get in there and dump your yard waste. So
You know what the times are on Saturday?
they run from 12 to 4. Run by
Quite a
volunteers.
few people ask me, so thank
12
you
to
for
4,
that.
and it's all run by volunteers. It's a really good effort by folks that are running that. They'll give you the specifics if you call Oakridge Air and tell you how they'd like it done. Yep. And you can arrange a time and everything like that, and they'll give you the parameters, what you can't put out there. That's all I have. So we're down to 7, which is council comments or announcements. Anyone? Councilor Kenyon, first hand.
I just remembered that on March 2nd at a council meeting, we discussed reviewing our council rules in the near future. And the counselors were all supposed to send information if they had any requests to make changes to James. Did you receive stuff from everyone?
I did not.
Okay. Some, no?
None that I can recall.
I sent.
You sent something? All right.
I sent the very same night.
Okay.
I sent a huge email. Okay, well, anyway, I was going to request or offer to summarize everything so that we could have an efficient work session, and wondered if we could plan for that.
I'll ask counselors, do you still need time to go through that and submit comments? Because there's only apparently been one submitted. If we can extend it a couple of weeks if we need to, but you need to get information to the CA. Okay. Okay, well, I'll be sending you something, James. I just haven't got there yet.
Do we want to plan the date for the work session?
You want to take the comments together first?
Maybe wait until we have everything in and then make a date. But we need information to work with. Yeah, I know. I was just suggesting that we wait until we have the information from all the counselors before we make a date.
Should be able to do that next meeting, I would think.
Okay.
Any other counselor comments? Counselor Hooker?
Nothing.
All right, moving on. Consent agenda. I hear a motion?
I actually have a quick question. Did you see my?
The Scribner's error.
Scrivener error?
I was not able to fix the Scribner's error, but it is a one line of text should be below another line of text.
It's a very simple fix. I
So
would be
there's-
willing to approve the consent agenda if we know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, motion was to approve the consent agenda, made by Counselor Kenyon, seconded by Counselor Hollett. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, motion passes unanimously. On to business from the city council, 9.1, which is the Targeted Growth Management Code Evaluation Report presentation. James, you want to introduce this, or Laura, one of the two?
I think Darcy's going to be doing the presentation today. Laura may chime in from time to time, and they're both, looks like raring to go.
Yeah, Darcy, go ahead. Thank you.
Ooh, good evening. Ah, there we go. Everyone can hear me okay?
Mhm.
All right, very good. Thank you very much for having us here tonight. Considering your very long agenda, I feel honored that you carved some time out for this. So my name is Darcy Rudzinski. I am a planner, project manager, principal with the firm MIG. And I'm going to run through some slides tonight, and hopefully we'll have a little time for some questions, Q&A as well. But since I'm remote, I'll probably try to go through these really quickly. And I may not pause for breath, so we'll have to get a high sign from Rick or James to give pause where needed. So I believe I have permission to share my screen. So let's do that so you can see my slides. All right. Are we a go? Yes, Laura's saying yes. All right, let me make sure I can advance my slides. So really quickly, we're going to give you a project overview, provide some framework for the work that was accomplished over the fall, let you know what we found out from the community when we presented some of those findings back in the fall. And then we're going to go over the kind of the meat of the work now, which is a action plan, a draft action plan. So with that, I introduced myself. We have a pretty small project team, and it does include Laura Buell. She is our grant manager, and she's here to support us and provide technical assistance and advice. And tonight, hopefully, she'll help us with fielding some questions as well. And then, of course, we have city staff, James and Rick, that have been invaluable to helping us in this project. So I think many of you will be familiar with the Transportation Growth Management Program. It's a joint program between the ODOT, Oregon Department of Transportation, and the Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD. This program supports communities through technical assistance and grants. And with really the objective to help communities plan for vibrant neighborhoods and centers, to make sure that transportation planning and land use planning kind of go hand in hand, and that folks have safe access to these vibrant areas by a variety of different transportation modes. So the city applied for a grant because the city's interests and the transportation growth management interests were aligned in many respects. So this project is rooted in principles, for shorthand, smart development principles, but really they're rooted in sustainability, in providing choices for housing, choices for how you get around your community, and just generally promoting primarily smaller jurisdictions, smaller cities like yours. So while this program supports small communities, characteristics are similar to some extent. There's similarity in issues as well. But we take this knowledge from the TGM program, from these principles, and we try to help communities really find their own have their own voice through it. So we know Oakridge is not, Veneta is not, any number of other communities. So we are trying to find some ways to help you improve your community. So the first part of the project really was a lot of homework, evaluating predominantly Oakridge's development requirements, really how your development requirements are going to shape and achieve, the future of how the community looks. And now we're in the phase where we've created an action plan based on everything that we have researched and everything that we've heard from the community, to basically chart a way forward, to make some improvements to requirements, to better articulate your vision for the future of your community through policy language. And so this action plan that we're going to go through tonight has a variety of pretty specific concepts and suggestions. And we want to both make sure that those are known and kind of understood where they've come from and why they might be beneficial to Oakridge, answer any questions about that. And ultimately, if the next step would be to acknowledge this action plan as something that you would like to pursue in what would be phase 2 of the project. So project objectives, again, many of you are probably familiar and have heard me talk about these before, so we won't talk at length about each of these boxes, but they do illustrate really the connection between land use planning and transportation planning, that you're looking to provide choices for the ways you get around your community, so planning not just for cars, but for pedestrians, for people who walk, who bike, who have mobility devices, etc. Some specific things that we looked at were related to the Old Town Design Subdistrict, so how development happens in Uptown, kind of re-looking at the design standards there, looking at how the community will plan for transportation options. Again, just kind of making sure that you continue to have and continue to improve a vibrant and walkable business environment. We also looked at really a lot of development requirements related to what uses you allow, the density, at what densities you allow development, building types, parking requirements, all in the interest of promoting this activity and vibrancy, and consistent with the objectives of the project. So pretty short project. We had a site tour back in August and went through an evaluation period. And now we are basically at the end of phase 1 of the project with the action plan. So let's see here. So the evaluation memo, that is provided in your packet tonight. That was completed back in November. And while we looked at your existing policies and your comprehensive plan, we considered the recommendations from your fairly recent transportation system plan. We looked and considered kind of the planning work you've been doing around your residential lands needs, and the analysis around that. We, more than anything, focused in on your development requirements. And this slide is just to give kind of like, okay, so what are we aiming at with that? We're really looking at ways to improve those instructions for future development, basically, making sure that through your requirements, you're actually getting the built environment that's going to be the most desirous and really the most coordinated as far as land uses, that's housing, businesses, new commercial, and the transportation elements, the walking, the biking, and someday, hopefully, transit. So these were the key topic areas in the evaluation memorandum. Again, I touched on this a little bit earlier, looking at uptown standards, the uses and standards. That second bullet really was focused on housing and ensuring that you have a clear path to future development of a variety of housing types. Green infrastructure, we'll talk a little bit later about that. We also looked at temporary lodging standards. We know in other communities, particularly communities that are focused or have a large tourism base, that homes that are being used for rentals, for vacation rentals, are sometimes supplanting or decreasing the availability of affordable housing or just housing in general. We found that wasn't really the case in Oakridge, but we did have that as part of the evaluation, look. And then the zoning ordinance structure, again, looking at really how that document could be improved as far as just accessibility, readability, some minor updates there. So Uptown, again, it's actually a design sub-district, and we heard from staff in starting the project. We've heard from some community members in particular that there were kind of barriers to development based on the strict requirements for how buildings looked predominantly. We looked at bicycle parking. We looked at a current requirement that you have to have commercial on the ground floor, and if maybe there was ways to build in some flexibility there, again with a mind to encouraging future development in Uptown. We also realized that while there is a sort of a legal definition of Old Town, there's some confusion of well, where is that? And we call it Uptown. Well, I'm in Uptown. Am I in this in this district? So we've made some recommendations to kind of clean that up a little bit and maybe even rename what's on the books for more clarification. So the key issues we considered around housing really had to do with increasing housing options, looking at what might be a little strict or might be difficult for a future property owner or developer to actually comply with, and how to make those requirements, maybe the barriers, a little bit less to making, allowing for housing to be built. We also looked at parking, both for, well, I should say the off-street parking requirements, again, understanding that land is expensive, and that having to provide more space for more cars will reduce the amount of space that you can have for living. So all of these things, again, looking for ways to encourage more housing development and more housing types. Multimodal transportation, again, multimodal just meaning planning for all sorts of ways how people get around. So we looked at how to make some improvements there. Green infrastructure, again, mentioning that, really focusing on street trees, for example, and some requirements around that. And then, of course, Highway 58, this has been a big conversation through your transportation system plan update, and it continues today, how to make walking and biking and rolling more safe along your main artery. And then short-term rentals, again, these are things that we looked at and we discussed with property owners and with the community. And I can go through what's in the action plan itself. So we took a lot of that information from that original assessment, some of the things we found, some of the barriers, some of the things we felt like could be improved through your development requirements, and we asked what folks thought about it. And then basically those community perspectives helped us prioritize and really characterize and define the solutions that are in the action plan. So the ways that we talked to the community, early on, we had a meeting with the Planning Commission back in the fall. Got some initial ideas and feedback about, again, what's working well and what's not working as well as it could, as far as development requirements, and then just generally what was happening in the community. We did a day and kind of 3 sessions of what we called stakeholder interviews. And really that was just an opportunity for us to meet kind of in small group session with residents, property owners, business owners, people that had a kind of a unique perspective in their role and how they, relate to the city of Oakridge. We had a community meeting back in December and got some more feedback through some exercises and, again, just conversation with community members. And then we had a planning commission work session that was open to the public back in January to kind of go over what we learned from our community meeting. So all of that kind of feedback and response is also included in your packet tonight. So you can look with more depth of some of the exercises we did, some of the questions we asked, and some responses that we received. So we're here tonight with this joint work session, and then ultimately there'll be a city council meeting in May to take formal action on the action plan. So these are some of the ideas that were, or some of the things that community helped us kind of focus in on. Allowing apartments to be built without commercial space requirements. That's really an uptown conversation. So people were open and thought that was a good idea to kind of liberalize what a future building could be by way of what tenants could be in it. Increasing housing options, people were very favorable to that. They helped us identify, that Oakridge does have some specific housing needs. Again, Highway 58 and safety for all modes of transportation. And then the short-term rental conversation, we really, again, found it's not really an issue of having too many or there being any conflicts related to that use within your community necessarily. In fact, most people felt like it was a great opportunity for property owners, for homeowners to have some additional income and have some flexibility with how they use their property. But knowing that, everyone felt like it was a pretty good idea to have those registered with the city so the city can have some record of that. So I think with that, I'm going to take a quick pause and see if there are any questions before we get into the details of the action plan.
Any questions from councilors or commissioners? Please.
Darcy, I have a question about if you could elaborate a little bit on the minimum parking spaces for businesses in the uptown.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. And I think with your leave, we'll wait till we get to that slide in the draft action plan.
Well, I was thinking I would also wait until we get to it because it'll be in this plan, my question.
Okay.
I did have one question. If you go back one slide, can you further define middle housing, transitional housing and workforce housing?
Yes, definitely. Let's see. We're not really tackling transitional housing in the action plan, although that might be a recommendation that you might have. Transitional housing is for, or temporary housing is for housing folks that are houseless and have kind of a temporary need for shelter, for housing. Workforce housing really has to do more with having housing that is commensurate or matches the income levels, wage levels of your community. So workforce housing would allow for folks that work in Oakridge to live in Oakridge. I think accessible housing, again, is, I think, having access to housing more than anything. And short-term rental. Was that the other question about? Or
It was just a general term, middle housing.
middle housing? Thank you. Yes, and we have a slide on that, and I can probably better articulate what middle housing is when we get to that slide.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the group? Okay, Darcy, thank you.
All right. So what you have in your packet is the action plan. And basically it has a list of recommended changes in a table format. When it, and most of the recommendations do relate to a code section or a development requirement, that is listed for reference. And then the discussion, it's really the rationale, like why are we discussing this? Why are we recommending a certain thing? So that's how it is organized. And again, the appendices, the attachments have, all the background that really helps support those recommendations, including the public feedback that we received, summary of the public feedback we received. So what I probably haven't articulated yet is the direction for phase 2. So all these actions, they aren't just, to sit in the memo and, get put in a file somewhere. They really are intended to guide and give us direction, give the community direction on specific changes. And again, most of those would be to your development requirements. So the phase 2 part of this program, this grant program or grant project, would be to tackle those amendments specifically. So this document has the recommendations, pretty specific, hopefully described well in some detail, but it doesn't give you the language. It doesn't give you the requirements. It won't change anything if someone wants to come in tomorrow and develop, a new building in Uptown. So that's where we want to get to answer questions that you might have about the actions, make sure that they seem reasonable and headed in the right direction. Where we need a little bit of more definition, or if there's something that you're not comfortable with, or you just have concerns, that's where we kind of want to make sure we know now, so that when you do, if you do decide to go on to a phase 2 of the project, we're actually in sync with what you would like to see, and we can get some amendments that are appropriate for you and your community. So Uptown, this gets back to the question about parking standards. So off-street parking requirements in Old Town, we have suggested eliminating those. And in fact, I think that's my next slide. So I'll just go there and I'll toggle back to the overarching list. So really, it's not about eliminating parking. We need parking if we're going to visit a store, if we're going to visit City Hall, or if we're going to go, get a drink in Uptown. So that's not what the suggestion is. But the suggestion is for future development, instead of spending money and resources developing more off-street parking, to make more of the lot, more of the parcel available for actual active uses. So businesses, apartments, etc. So it has to do with cost. It has to do with developability of the parcels in your downtown. And it has to do with flexibility. So right now there's a requirement that off-street parking is developed. What we're suggesting is, allow the future developer, the landowner, to determine what the right amount of parking is for their use, their proposed use, and that might include an off-street, space or two. It might include a small parking lot, depending on the size of the building and the use proposed, but eliminating the requirement provides for more flexibility for, kind of to right size or to provide appropriate parking. So I know there's a question about that, so I want to pause and see if that answers it. Okay. So the other requirements have to do with, again, how you kind of put the building on the lot. Again, this is for future development. It doesn't have to do with existing buildings, but really if you're proposing something new. And we're suggesting that you don't have a setback, so that you actually develop right up to the property line. That's how historic buildings are today. Again, it provides for a real active storefront and active streetscape. So that's that second bullet. We talked about reducing the commercial ground floor requirements to allow for housing to be developed on the ground floor. Multi-unit residential uses, allowing those in areas of the Old Town Subdistrict. And then the architectural standards. We have, reviewed that. We think that there's some room for improvement. Again, we wouldn't recommend eliminating those standards because they do, if applied, they do provide, a higher, I was going to say a higher aesthetic value, but it will provide for some consistency, some coherency in your downtown, and really avoid the worst kind of outcomes, which would be, low value materials, no windows, etc. So we have some ideas about that without specifics right now. So that's really a slide for the simplify, revise. I think we need to have some more community conversation on what what you'd like to retain by way of architectural and design standards. So that's Uptown. Kind of moving on to more of the residential related recommendations. This gets to our middle housing kind of conversation with the community. So the first couple of bullets there really have to do with increasing the possibility of more variety in your housing types, and this is really consistent with your residential land needs analysis, which identified the need for more affordable housing types. Consistent with some of the recommendations of that work as well, particularly reducing minimum lot sizes. So let's talk a little bit about middle housing. So middle housing is a term coined to describe the types of housing that really are between a single family home on a single lot to apartments kind of on the other end of the scale. So it's really kind of a density intensity type of scale. And these types of housing really fall in between. So those are some examples there of what middle housing types are. And the recommendations are really to define these types in your code, to allow for them, and then to make sure there are standards that are appropriate to both compatibility with existing residential neighborhoods in Oakridge, and also not so strict that you never ever get to see them built, if that makes sense. So defining these types, again, there's some examples of attached townhomes, triplexes, cottage cluster is a type of middle housing that really take advantage of typically smaller footprints, so smaller units, but sharing common open space, sometimes sharing parking, to really, again, kind of maximize the land and use it in a way that provides for a more modest housing type, but still with, delightful amenities. All right. So that's kind of an overview of the housing recommendations. I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about the accessory dwelling unit height. So this is a recommendation, again, to allow for a little bit taller accessory dwelling units. Again, this is, we don't have an example here, but 2-story kind of allow for tuck under parking, which is a popular design to, again, kind of make the most of a small footprint. And again, just generally simplifying standards and making it a little bit less expensive, less onerous to develop this type of housing in your community. Let's stop for housing, I guess. Any questions about housing before we move on to transportation? Okay. So with your transportation system plan update, you have a pretty recent, modern plan for your transportation system. And part of that project had a number of recommendations for your development code, but those were not adopted at the time that your transportation system plan was adopted. So we pulled we pulled all of them forward for reconsideration, and those are now recommended now in your action plan. So many of those have to do with consistency with your planned transportation system, and they all really get at providing more robust standards for biking, for pedestrians, for transit, again, anticipating the time in which you'd have more fixed route transit, more stops in Oakridge. Some recommendations about how you handle large parking lots, again, future parking lots or redeveloped parking lots, and providing for safe passage for folks on foot, shade, making those more friendly to not only cars but people walking. So there's some illustrations about kind of circulation in a large parking lot. The image on the left, the TriMet Park and Ride, again, that is not sized for Oakridge. That picture is kind of too big for you. But you can kind of shrink that down, and you might think about a park and ride on the highway or off the highway, and what that could look like in the future. And then again, the run on the right is showing some landscape islands, shade trees, some lighting. Again, you're not going to see a lot of these really big parking lots in Oakridge, but you can make standards for for some of these treatments, some of these characteristics when parking, off-street parking, surface parking lots redevelop or when they are proposed. Mentioned green infrastructure, and the recommendation is to include some elements of that. And then, so what is green infrastructure? There's some images, and really, it's a way to break up your hardscape, your impervious surfaces, in a way that is more ecological. So what we're proposing for Oakridge really is focused more on street trees and requirements around that. And then temporary lodging standards, pretty modest recommendation there. Defining what short-term rental is, and then working with the city perhaps on some ideas about how to record those. And finally, just structure of your ordinances. We're going to look at ways of improving what you have, just to make it more usable and logical, and easier to administer for city staff. So that's a lot. Certainly, if you haven't had an opportunity to consider the recommendations in the memo, or if you had more questions or suggestions for improvement, this would be a good time in the next few weeks to get comments back to Rick or James. We are looking now at the City Council meeting in May for an action on the action plan. So, and that is with a mind to undertaking a phase 2 of this project and actually doing some policy and code updates. And that concludes what I had to share with you.
Darcy, Councilor Hollett, do you still have a question?
I was just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on the frontier. You had 2 different words up there. I forgot what the other one was, but what the suggestion is moving forward.
Yeah, let's see here. On the design standards for, yes. Well, let's see if we can. I'm going to actually flip to the action plan itself. Let's see if I can find it quickly. I don't know if that's something that you have at your fingertips as well. I think our professional assessment of what's required. Again, the picture, the photo on the left is, I'm sure you're familiar with, a fairly recent development that was developed using the requirements that are currently on the books. So that's what you could expect similar development to look like in the future. We heard quite a bit of, especially from the stakeholders, a smaller group comments, really focused on, the standards are, they're too much. They're really kind of a barrier to developing in Uptown. This idea that maybe if we're requiring too many things, that it's really dampering enthusiasm for developing in Uptown, and that's contrary to what we'd like to see happen. So, taking that information and really looking at the details, just looking at what's required did not seem to be out of line or really out of hand with other communities that have design requirements. That doesn't mean that our professional opinion is right for Oakridge. So we kind of think that there needs to be a relook at what is currently required and get kind of a finer grain or finer tuned understanding of what potentially is no longer desirable for Oakridge. And I think there I'm thinking of the wood materials, the type of materials that are required. Maybe that level of detail isn't necessary, but certainly the idea of having large windows, for people to have kind of that interaction with the storefronts to make those storefronts inviting. That's very important in a downtown that's walkable and really attractive. The protection, the awnings, the kind of thing that feels like you are sheltered from the elements. That's very desirable. So there's certain things that we wouldn't recommend not doing. And then there are other things that are like, well, that's kind of a style choice. Do you want to have a Western themed style? If you don't, maybe there's some alternatives that we look at that really, instead of identifying the types of facade materials you're going to require, maybe it's a matter of prohibiting, some of the siding or design, materials that really are not, not what you want.
Thank you. I guess I was kind of curious if you guys had an actual recommendation of a style. We have directed our planning commission to look at other alternatives. I believe, kind of came to consensus that the frontier wasn't really something we're going after anymore. And this has all been in the last couple years. And I am very familiar with that business owners that you have pictured there and what that business owner and I do really like the design that they came out with in the end, but I would say that when I look at that, it doesn't speak frontier with me, and I'm okay with that. I think that's great, but yeah, so I guess what I'm getting at is full recommendation of something that could be conducive to the business owners in the uptown area that would not be the frontier style.
Right. Yeah. That understood. Yeah. And I'm looking at the actual recommendation is on page 8 or starts on page 8 of the action plan, and really the the action is to review and update what you have. So the other thing that I didn't mention that was also brought up was the fact that having or requiring so much wood really is not consistent with the the types of fire seasons you've been having, and yeah, and that idea of the frontier style, maybe that's old Oakridge, but that's not where we're headed. That's not what we want to see in the future. So those kind of ideas are captured in the action plan without specific recommendations yet. So that definitely would be a phase 2 part of the project.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to point out that when I was reading the recommended changes that you guys are making, I didn't see anything that said you recommended that we require all the Airbnbs to register with the city. Did I just miss that page, or is it in there for sure?
That is a good clarification. The actual recommendation is just to include a definition of short-term rental.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
and then-
So
Sorry, to continue a little, I wanted to point out that it's actually a requirement, I believe, for our city, for any business in our city to have a business license, which would mean that they should already be registered. Am I correct on that thought process? I mean, isn't an Airbnb a business?
I think maybe Rick or James can answer this question in the affirmative. What I understand is that they do have to pay the tax, or they're registered through the lodging tax
Yeah, that's
requirements.
through the
Right,
county
but-
and the state.
Right, but I didn't think that there was a city registration or requirement or license.
Do
That-
not, our businesses aren't required to have a business license here?
That is correct. It's not, we do not require Airbnb owners to have a business license.
Okay, but we do require businesses to have business licenses. And
Yes.
for some reason, we're excluding them. So maybe would changing that require changing the ordinance or?
I think we'd have to have a discussion on whether or not Airbnb is a business. I don't think they're required to register as
I
a
mean,
business through the state.
They're renting their property.
You'd have to have long-term renters, rentals do the same thing if you did that, but yes.
Right.
Mm.
Right. So I would have to double check where we have documented that it was a recommendation kind of coming from the community, either through the community.
Yeah, I
open
saw it
hou-
in
yeah.
your slideshow here tonight. I saw it in your
Mhm.
slideshow.
Yeah, that was a recommendation. And actually, why it didn't end up in the action plan is that the action plan's really focusing on the code, the development requirements. And that wouldn't be a development requirement because nobody thought that that was necessary. We didn't hear from the community that regulating short-term rentals or Airbnbs, that wasn't really necessary. But we didn't even have a definition for them as an allowed use in the code. So that's really what the code recommendation is.
Okay, okay.
As far as the municipal code, what you'd be requiring a business license for, that was kind of outside the parameters of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I was just gonna follow up, I was at meetings that they had, it was more registering with the city, so the city had a good record of like, where are the Airbnbs, who has them, if there's an issue, the city knows who to contact, etc. Because it's not always managed by the owner specifically, but
Oh, that's true. I do know that several of them are already on our business registry for the city of Oakridge, so it seems like they should all be on there. It's just my opinion.
Darcy, I don't think we have any further questions, but I really do appreciate your presentation tonight. And I don't know if Laura has anything to add, but thanks for your attendance, Laura.
Thank you. No, I was going to jump in during the Old Town Design District standards, but that ended up being covered. So yeah.
Thanks, Laura. James, you ready to go? Sure. Okay. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, with the schedule changes, we're going to move to item 15, which is our committee appointments. The agenda bill covers all of them, 15.1 through 15.5, with the exceptions we've already discussed. James, do you want to introduce this?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we do have our first candidate, Megan Metcalf, online, I believe. And she's applying for the RTMP/TRT committee. And her application is in council's packet.
I move we appoint Megan Metcalf to seat 3 of the RTMP TRT committee for a term expiring in December 2025.
I'll second that.
A motion was made by Counselor Tarman and seconded by Counselor Kenyon. Does any counselor have any questions of the candidate or just discussion in general?
Did you first?
Go ahead.
Megan, there you are. I was just curious what interests you in these. You applied for 2 positions or just one?
Just for one.
RTMP. I was curious what interests you in this committee.
I have a background in, or I studied advertising in school, and I just have some extra time on my hands coming up, so I figured I'd help out the community.
Thank you.
Counselor Kenyon?
Kind of the same question, and I really appreciate your application. Thank you.
Megan, have you have any experience at all with the RTMP or TRT programs?
No,
Okay. It's not like it's hard rocket science, but we'll get you schooled up on it. Thanks so much for your application. Any other questions? Counselor Hooker, you okay? All right.
I'm fine.
With that, Jackie, can you call for a vote, please? Unless we have a technical
Looks like
problem
we
here.
might have gotten logged out.
You want to hang on just a second? We got a Zoom issue happening. Everybody write that.
Yeah, everybody.
Interesting. We still have all the video.
Was it us that was logged in and recording or Jackie? Okay.
For sure.
There we go. Can you hear us, Jan?
Yes, I can.
Oh, perfect.
Good. All right. Jackie, will you call for a vote for, let me state the motion, which was to appoint Megan Metcalf to seat 3 of the RTMP TRT committee for a term of expiring in December 2025. Can you call for a vote, please, Jackie?
Yes. Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett.
Hi.
Thank you. And Megan, welcome aboard. Thank you for volunteering.
thank you.
I'll just let you know real quick, I'll be sending out an email probably either tomorrow or Monday, so that the committee can pick a day that we want to start working together. Thank you.
Okay. I guess we're down to 15.4. Would that be correct, James?
That is correct. Ms. Lovell Beers, who's here in person.
Great. Do I have a motion? Ms. Lovell Beers?
I move we appoint Seema Lovell Beers,
Mhm.
seat 2 of admin committee for a term expiring December 2025.
And budget committee.
And to seat 4 of the budget committee for a term expiring in December 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Tarman, second by Counselor Coker. Questions of the candidate or any discussion, please?
I'll ask Seema, hi, what interests you specifically in those 2 committees? What?
I've had a lot of experience in much larger place.
It's a salary.
I was an executive assistant to the deputy commissioner for the Department of Home Services. I've been a budget analyst, Department of Home Services in New York, I started my service, service, you remember? I started in '87 and I was a literacy specialist and
She
medication.
right here on here.
And
And
I just kept taking classes
she's the one I want to get on some of these.
Jan, you're not muted.
and I worked myself up and to doing, budget analysis. And my partner, my buddy at work, what we did, being that it was for homeless services, what we did, our thing was the SRO. And SRO is single room occupancy for single adults. So we handled the budget for that, and that was like, at the time, it's probably more now, but at the time, it was like a 22 million plus budget.
Perfect.
So, we did the annual review, we did the close out, the new budget, we adopted the budget, what the final shakeout was. We used to have the budget New Year parties. So on June 31st, we would have a party because July 1st starts the
Sure.
new year. So we, yeah, so, and I'm here, I'm retired. It's being that I come from such a different place, and I know for a fact when you're in something, you don't appreciate it. But I would like to see, I want it to improve, but I want it to keep us unique. It's quaint, it's quirky. I like trains. Any New Yorker will tell you that we love New York. The subway is the train. It's a true train. So we love trains, and I would just want us to make sure that we have enough to do what we need to do.
Mhm.
So, just keep watching the list of things.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. And I think you'll find our budget somewhat simpler than the
Yeah.
Homeland Security. Any other questions? No? All right. Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett.
Aye.
That's all.
Thank you and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 15.5, which is council appointment to ODAC. I'm going to make my appointment stand, which was Counselor Tarman, unless someone can tell me why he's not qualified to do that job. So with that, I'll open it to a motion if there is one. Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you.
Mayor, I wanted to make a point of privilege that there's some kind of noise. We might have someone that's not muted that's coming through there.
Can you tell, Colleen, if anyone's not muted? I'm not
Okay.
hearing it.
Okay, it was a minute ago, so maybe
Okay.
they found out.
Okay, that brings us then to 9.2, which is the Moose Lodge gambling license fee waiver request. James, can you introduce this?
Sure. Well, we haven't had one of these in a while. The Moose Lodge would like to start bingo again. In order to do so, they have to do two things. They have to get a license from the city for $75 a year. And then once they secure that, then they have to get a Class B license from the state. So the first step is to get the city license. We actually haven't updated these forms for quite a while, so it's an old form. And they are also requesting a fee waiver on that $75 fee. They are a nonprofit organization, and any profits they make from bingo is then they turn around and use that for their charitable endeavors. So it's not really a money-making thing they're trying to do. They just want to bring bingo back for their members and to use as fundraising for their charities. So those are their two requests: is one, to get the license, two, to have a waiver of the $75 fee. And Mr. Sargent from Moose Lodge is here if anyone has any questions.
All right, do I hear a motion for this agenda bill?
I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve the Moose Lodge's social gambling certificate and to waive the $75 fee.
I'll second.
A motion made by Counselor Coker and seconded by Counselor Hollett. Since he's the focus of this agenda bill, we'll allow the discussion with Mr. Sargent. Does anybody have any questions for him or discussion about the?
I do.
Okay, Counselor Coker.
Hey, Foy, how you doing? What days are you guys planning on doing this? Is this just gonna be a weekend thing or?
Most likely, bingo will be on the weekend, that seems to be the best time that people can participate. We have a flag in the state, where we have city, and the Oakridge city will assist us. Only 90% of the funds that raised by bingo will go back into a large percentage. We want to use the funds for scholarships for the high school, for shop for the top, for our math club, and the city is there.
Thank you.
Any discussion on? I personally really think it's great to have bingo back in the town. I'm opposed to the fee waiver, but and everyone knows why, but we'll just let that go. There's no other discussion. Jackie?
Excuse me,
I'm
Mayor.
sorry. Yeah, there you go. Counselor Hooker.
I just had one question. I couldn't hear exactly what Foy was saying. However, my question was, is this strictly for lodge members or is it for public as well?
No, this will be open to the public.
He said it's open to public.
Thank you. That's it.
Great. Thanks. Anything else? Jackie, will you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
No.
Counselor Coker. Aye. Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 9.3, which is the rain contract renewal or cancellation. James?
Thank you, Mayor. All right, as council may recall, when we signed the MOU with Rain, it was a multi-year contract. So we've already paid for the first year that goes through the end of the fiscal year, so the end of June. If we wish to continue, which will be for next fiscal year, starting July 1st. If we do nothing, we will be billed in May for the second year, for the $10,000 for the second year. So we have to cancel by May 1st if council wants to cancel the second year. Our finance director, her recommendation is to cancel because of the high costs. We recognize that they do a lot of good for the community, but it is a high cost. And I just remember when we had this discussion that council wanted to be reminded when this contract was up. So we have until the end of this month to decide to cancel if we want to cancel.
So we have two options here. One is no motion, there a motion here? Is there a motion here?
I move to direct CA to cancel the MOU contract with Rain for fiscal year 23-24.
Do I hear a second? Okay, I'll second that. Discussion. Counselor Kenyon.
I'd like to ask Colleen, what has changed in our budget that makes it unaffordable since we were able to afford it last year? Did something change?
Actually, we weren't able to afford it this fiscal year. It wasn't even in our budget. So the fact of the matter is it wasn't in our, we still ended up paying it. And so since it wasn't in our budget this year, I don't see why we are going to have the funds to pay for it again.
But we added it into our budget, right, during a supplemental?
No, we did not. I mean, we didn't have the funds. So
What?
we didn't have the funds for it. So I had nowhere to pull the funds from to put it in the supplemental. It wasn't budgeted.
In other
for.
words, you're saying like there wasn't any contingency anywhere that you could deplete or another line that could be reduced
Correct.
through the whole entire general fund?
Yep.
So then how did we pay it?
We just paid it. We were billed for it.
I mean, like what GL code did
I
it
can tell
go?
you right now.
I remember it being in the supplemental budget.
I thought it was too.
It was not.
It's not over 10% of the fund anyway, so it wouldn't have been required.
Correct. I'd have to find it, but I will let you know here in a minute. I printed my report different.
I was reviewing our administrative expense fund today and saw, because I believe I remembered a discussion about this, I saw that we have a line called non-legal professional services for $12,000. And we also have a legal professional services for 21,000.
Correct.
And compared those to prior years, the non-legal one, I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Yeah, the non-legal one didn't exist in the budget before, and I thought that's what we had discussed we were going to use for rain.
It was there when I was the city administrator. There wasn't.
No, that's not correct. And actually I pulled up what was in that journal, that GL line, and it had nothing to do with marine, what's spent in there right now.
How- Yeah.
Yeah,
last
so
time,
we
but
would have had to have been paying them out of a line in the budget in prior years.
Right.
went up a
So
little
I
bit.
think it might have come out of that previously, but we did not budget for it this year in that budget line at all. And it went up, what did it go up? $2,500 or $2,000 per year.
So
So-
if the line has 12,000 in it, do you know what kind of other stuff we're using for non-legal?
Yes. My computer's frozen.
We got visitors.
We do. Says it's reconnecting.
Would you be more comfortable bringing this back with getting some answers and talking about it next session? Because we do have till the 1st of May.
I show.
Oh,
the
that's true. What,
Professional non-legal for 2019-20 is 24,000, then 34,000, then 10,000, and this year it's 12,000.
Can you,
oh,
do you mind
I
giving
see
me
what you're
that?
saying is that it has been in prior
Yeah.
years.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I
My
didn't see it
understanding
in.
was that Chief Martin had just forgot about it that year. 'Cause it was his first time doing the budget.
What's that GL code for that, please?
400, 130.
The whole thing, 100, 1, 400, 130.
Oh, one, yeah, up at the top.
Thanks.
100-11, 400, 130.
So right now, what's in that, as far as expenses? Well, it looks like it's, I don't know what Civic Plus is, Iron Mountain, which is our shredding company, and some yard company.
Colleen,
Yeah,
Civic Plus is our website.
thank you.
Welcome.
So yeah, that's what's in there now.
Would it be a quick thing for you to do a search to see where rain has been paid out of in prior years?
Yeah, you think it's this code here? I can pull it.
Well, it sounds like you're telling me it's not that code, so I wanted to know what code
It's
it
not that
is.
code for this year is all I was saying. We didn't budget in there for this
This
year.
year was kind of anomaly though, so I feel like we should
Yeah.
kind of compare it to prior
Slightly.
to that.
I was only mentioning if it was quick because it sounds like Mayor Cutchin would like to move on to something else if we.
We do have a full agenda. And we
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
This kind of work going on in the council meetings, kind of. Recent.
So yes, it did come out of this budget line last year.
Okay, that's good to know. I would like, if we can, to just table this to the next meeting and.
And what's, do you need more information?
Well, actually, no, now that that's clarified, I'd like to. Don't know if I have it in front of me. I don't have the motion, but I'd like to make it whatever it says.
There's already a motion.
Oh,
There's a motion.
thank
Made and
you.
seconded.
I'm ready then.
Okay.
I would be really saddened if we did cancel rain. I've been to most of their coffee meetups for the last 2 years. I've had a chance to meet with a lot of the entrepreneurs in this town and people that are looking to start up businesses that have really benefited greatly from rain. And they've been holding numerous classes and they have a plethora of classes to come. They've also been partnering with the chambers and really quite involved. Really disappointed if this is something their organization can continue helping out Oakridge in a multitude of ways.
Any other comments?
I've been to a few of the coffee meets and didn't feel like I got a lot from it.
Councilor Hooker, did you have something?
No.
Okay. James, I only have one question. As I looked at the next agenda item, the workforce, they are a partner listed in that grant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And will that, obviously, if we remove funding, that they're going to withdraw from that, and will it negatively impact our ability to get that grant?
Potentially, but that's if we even get the grant
Right,
and,
right.
But that is a potential outcome.
All right. Go ahead, Councilor Kenyon.
Oh, I just wanted to point out that I do think that rain has been beneficial to our community with the program that they're doing, just from what I'm hearing in chatter on social media through. But I would have liked to have well, let me rephrase. I do support keeping them because we've already signed the contract. I
Of course.
would like to see that through, but I also noticed when I read the contract that they are supposed to give us a presentation of their progress throughout the year. And I would have liked to have seen that here tonight or on a previous meeting before we are presented with the idea of canceling the contract. I'm not even knowing.
I believe Rain did do a presentation 3 months ago, roughly.
Yeah, he
Oh,
sure did.
maybe you're
Yeah.
right.
Mm.
Maybe I have seen that recently. Okay.
Remember the gentleman's name? Small business.
That was longer than 3 months ago. That was Robert Killen.
Wasn't it a woman?
There was
came?
Robert Killen and Melissa Pizantario. We also could have businesses here and talk about their experiences. I think it's a little premature to jump so quick on canceling this before we have actual real experiences and people that work with rain. I mean, we have one in the audience that works with rain on a regular basis.
I think I remember what you're referring to, and actually, it was when a new person started with them, and what they said was that they were brand new and they didn't have that information, and that they would bring it back if we requested that. So, and it is part of their contract, so I'd like to request it.
Any other comments? Jackie, would you call for a vote, please? 1 second. The motion on the table is to direct the CA to cancel the MOU contract with Rain for fiscal year 23-24. Jackie?
Counselor Hooker,
Nay.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Nay.
Counselor Kenyon,
Nay.
Counselor Hollett. Maybe, shocker.
Okay, motion
Is
fails.
that acceptable at a
Yeah.
meeting for her to be talking like that and laughing when we cast our votes?
Saying shocker. Really? Our city reporter. It's inappropriate. This is a public meeting. That's very
I mean, she's
inappropriate.
entitled to her feelings, but not during the middle
And
of
it's
a meeting.
also inappropriate for a counselor to discipline a staff
I'm
member.
not disciplining.
Yes, you are. You just said it's inappropriate. James, please just understand what happened and take care of it.
Okay.
Okay, motion failed. Moving on to 9.6, which is letter of support for the RISE grant application.
All right. So Lane Workforce Partnership, RAIN, the Oakridge School District, and Southern Willamette Forest Collaborative applying for a RISE grant to create a rural jobs accelerator innovation hub here in Oakridge, and they are requesting a letter of support from the city. There's no financial obligation to the city beyond providing potential office space in the OIP should the grant be received.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve the letter of support for the RISE grant application.
Thank you. I hear a second.
Second.
Well, this will attribute that to Councilor Tarman. Discussion at all? Staff or ourselves? James?
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I wanted to point out that reading through that grant information was difficult for me. It felt like there was a lot of information in maybe even repeated in different parts of the thing. So the flow made it real hard for me to understand. I thought that it was actually going to be a requirement for us to have $150,000 match the way I was reading it. But so I asked James to clarify, and I was relieved to learn that it would not be the city that would be required to have the funding for that match. So I feel like it is something that I could support. I was very worried about that, but I definitely like to have more information about the program should the actual grant get approved.
Thank you. Any other questions? I did have one, James. So SWS, South Willamette Solutions, was also a partner in this, apparently.
Yeah.
And so the in-kind contribution that we're going to give by reduced or no rent for that person part of her staff, or is it another person that would be coming in, or do you know?
In a minute.
From discussion that I had today with Sarah, Ultimus Pope, the thought was if they get an additional employee, or if part of the job accelerator program requires having some employees, that we would provide that office space.
So it wouldn't be in her existing spaces, it would be an additional cubicle.
Yes, potentially.
All
Yeah.
right, thanks. Else?
I was just gonna say, I understood it to be, at least part of the whole entire grant was for hiring one person that would be like a manager for the OIP. So,
Okay,
But-
if we got the grant.
we know we came close last year, but it just didn't work out. So yeah, they've been very, very engaged. All right, Jackie, can you call for?
James, would that be, would be the hiring
I don't know, because it's a program that they're proposing, so it doesn't exist yet. So I don't know who would be doing the hiring.
Jackie, could you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Okay, motion passes unanimously. On to 9.7, which is the storm drain and crosswalk art designs. James? Or Rick, whoever wants to do it.
Yes, so in your packet, you got a bunch of artwork to go through. Due to the timing of things, I kind of cherry picked some of them, threw that out there as a suggestion. That's by no means what we have to do, and it's up to you guys to decide the artwork. We have artwork on the screen. If you can see, that's how they're numbered. We have crosswalks 1 through 4 and storm drains 1 through 8. So the one we see here are on North Ash Street, just right outside, and then Cedar Street, 2 blocks over by Banner Park. So any questions? Yes.
So did I just hear you say that you kind of made the recommendations, not a group of staff?
Actually, me and Colleen looked at them and thought these are good ones. I made some of the recommendations because they crossed all 3, crosswalk and storm drains. So yes, in attempt to expedite it, I looked through and thought these would look good.
Okay. I guess we don't have a huge amount of staff, but I assumed that
No.
several people gave input, so I was just gonna go along with it, but
Um,
I would be okay to go along with it, except that if there was any way to utilize more of what we were submitted instead of utilizing the same one on I think you had the same picture recommended for multiple places.
I know what you're talking about. That was storm drain on page 10. Was that, I don't have both pulled up.
I don't have it in front of me either, but I just remember that.
Yes.
and-
So
You know, there was just so much cute stuff
right.
sent to us. I kind of,
Okay, so
wish
that
we
was
could
one you're
util-
looking at here, I believe. And the reason I did put this one on there multiple times because it spanned the entire, and I really liked how it spanned the entire. So
oh, you mean multiple crosswalks?
right, so you did see one. I unfortunately I could switch to my screen. Do you have the agenda in front of you? I'm sorry. I electronically is not working out for me. All right, perfect. Yes, I had for storm drains 1 through 4, page 10. So, and these are 1 through 4, and that's page 10. So the reason I did put this one on there multiple times, and then this is also crosswalk number 1, was to capture the fact that it went from side to side. That was the whole
The
reason I
artwork
did
is
that.
large enough to cover the entire crosswalk.
Right, the one you see at the top of the screen here is it would be yeah, it captures and it gives a nice flow across the intersection. But if you see for specific crosswalk number, this is number 1, so that would be number 2. I did call for a different one, so the bottom one would have been this one on the bottom. The one on the bottom of the 2 correlates with crosswalk number 2 on Ash. So that would be right outside here with the other page 10 on the top of the intersection.
So there's several options here. Does
Yes.
someone have a motion they want to make of the 3 options that are available to you?
I'm not.
We are looking
There's lots of,
at Ash Street on this one. So this one is right outside our door. So if you would like to talk about the ones by Banner Park, those are 1 through like 1 through 10. So, no, earlier, I'm sorry. These ones that we talked about that go from side to side, were on by Banner Park. Minor correction.
okay. I'm not sure I'm really following what you're talking about. Are you, so do you mean like you would do all 4 on a corner, all the same pattern?
No. What I'm referring to is no. So at the north intersection of Cedar Street, where you see the top of the 2, that incorporates 4 of our 8 one of our 8 crosswalks. No, I'm sorry. One of our 4 crosswalks, 4 of our 12 drains. So that would give the artist the opportunity to go from the street to the other drain. All the other locations are different.
Okay,
Am I clear now? I'm sorry.
I
if that
think
was
so. So
confusing.
in other words, the one big section is going to have a whole theme, all of those.
One
that
big
what you're
section
saying?
will be what you see up there. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So, and if you would like, we could go over location by location if you like, or not. It's up to you guys. How you want to do this?
No, I'd prefer to simplify it. I think I just misunderstood when I was reading it, and now I think I'm clear. So,
But yes, there was some really cool artwork. I've really enjoyed doing this.
yeah. So we've already got a motion?
No, we need a motion
Oh,
of some sort.
I need to find the resolution, or do you know what number it is? Wow, I don't see it. So if somebody else has it.
I move we approve the staff select art locations for the storm drain and crosswalk art project.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Tarman, seconded by Counselor Coker. Any further discussion with the staff or internally?
Oh, I do have one quick question. So I realize we had a lot of input on the art, but is the same people that drew that going to be the ones painting it, or don't you have a crew for?
I don't have that answer yet. I will reach out to the artists that did the artwork,
Uh-huh.
see if they want to do it or if they want somebody else to do it. So-
Okay.
So that is yet to be determined.
Okay.
So.
Thanks.
Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Yeah. Counselor Kenyon,
I,
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett. Counselor Hollett, I can't hear you hardly at all. Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman.
Aye.
Great, motion passes. Moving on to 9.8, I believe, which is the Tree Planting Festival 2022 RTMP reimbursement request. James?
Okay. This request is for $2,500 in RTMP funds for the 2022 Tree Planting Festival. Similar to the,
We agreed to put this back on during public comment.
They needed both revenue sources.
gotcha. So as I noted here, Mr. Goldman turned these in, the four from 2022. He explained he was under the impression that he was not allowed to submit the request for the funding until after the events and after he had the receipts. I've advised him of the current procedure. And he is here today, and so is Vanessa, who is organizing the current tree planting festival. One important correction I need to note is that the RTMP fund balance has changed dramatically since I initially wrote this, which was a couple of meetings ago. Our current RTMP fund balance is actually $13,218. As council may recall, we spent a lot in RTMP recently on the bus fare and other events. Quite a bit since we started doing the fee waivers. We've taken and used that to cover the fees for park rentals and put it into the parks budget. And that's why we were down to 13,218. We expect an additional $19,000 roughly, but not until November. So just keep that in mind. If all the requests were granted to the full extent, that would be $9,500 roughly. So we have money to cover what has been asked for in all 5 of the requests in front of council, 3 of which are going to committee, but just wanted to update you on the fund balance.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move to approve 2,500 in RTMP funds for the 2022 Tree Planting Festival.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Terman, second by Councilor Coker. Discussion.
I have several. Just so you know, I always wait to see if other counselors want to speak because I know I tend to raise my hand a lot. So I delay. So I've been pretty invested in the RTMP and TRT programs for a lot of years with the city of Oakridge. I do know that in the rules, which need to be printed in order to get the application to fill out, or not necessarily printed, but the rules are included with the application. So I do find it hard to believe that you wouldn't have been aware that you need to apply 3 to 12 months in advance prior to an event. Maybe in a little while, but I want to get through what I want to talk about here. Also in the program, we did designate for heritage events to be eligible for $1,000 annually. So this request is for more than what we allow for a heritage event. The nonprofit events are allowed to 2,500 and for-profit events are 2,500, but only for the first 3 to 5 years. And so this is out of that zone as well. Also, let's see here. The application was applied, this was applied for after the new resolution came out. So what I tried to do was go and look at, like if this had been applied for last year, technically the old resolution would have applied to whether or not certain things would be fundable or not. but it actually, this resolution, the current one did pass prior to your application being submitted. So, I know I had actually more notes. I'm sorry. There was no advertising plan, and that is a request in this application. It's even part of, I had James give me the application that you turned in, and you turned in a form that's blank that says, this is where we want you to describe your advertising plan. So that was blank. There was no after event summary filled out, also blank in the questionnaire. So at the very most, I would like to recommend that our council consider a maximum of the $1,000, and also just have it be noted that you're very aware now that all of these rules exist and need to be hopefully followed in the future. I'm okay, but it's actually something that the council has to agree to. Is that okay, council? No, I'm asking for
To allow him-
permission to allow him to comment.
Is the council okay with that, allowing Mr. Goldman to speak? Sure. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so in the last year, not only tree planting, but the other three committees lost a significant amount of intelligence and a significant amount of personnel. I had to step in to be the interim treasurer for these organizations in order for them to sustain. So a lot of that delayed the applications. You know, tree planting, Judy Rowland became very ill and then passed away. Due to COVID and attrition for the other committees, they lost their treasurer. They lost several officers in fact. OAC was down to one officer, and Concerts in the Park last year was down to 3 officers. So basically it was on my shoulders to get everybody involved. And UBRA, in the same case, their treasurer resigned. And so I took the reins for UBRA for the flower baskets.
If you want to change that amount, I would just suggest that you make a motion for an amendment,
I
changing
would.
2,500 to 1,000, and we can vote on that.
I would like to make a motion for an amendment to change the dollar amount to $1,000.
Do I hear a second? Okay, the amendment motion was made by Councilor Kenyon, seconded by Councilor Hollett. The motion was to change the 2,500 to $1,000 in the original motion. Is there any discussion on this?
I mean, if that's part of the rules, and I agree with Councilor Kenyon, we should follow it.
Jackie, can you call for a vote on the amendment, please?
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon.
Aye.
All right, the amendment passes. So now we're just going to go back and vote on the original motion, which now reads, move to approve $1,000 in RT&P funds for the 2022 Tree Planting Festival. Jackie, can you call for a vote unless, I'm sorry.
I actually have
any
a question
discussion?
first. Can I ask Vanessa a question? Can this application go to the committee so they can review it, or does it have to, you really need it approved tonight? Or not, do you need it reviewed tonight? So you already got it. Yeah, I got 1,000 from last year, but this one that would be for this year, would it be okay for this to go to the committee through the normal process?
Yes.
That's a whole separate agenda item.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what we're talking about.
We're on the last year one.
I thought we finished that one.
No, we
No,
did the
we're-
amendment. Now we're doing the original. motion.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so Jackie, will be a vote for the original motion, which was to approve $1,000 in RTP funds for the 2022 Tree Planting Festival as amended.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
All right, motion passes. The next three, we've chosen to postpone and send them to committee, defer them to committee. So we're down to 9.12, which is the Go Beyond Racing Alcohol Permit, James.
All right, we have a running race coming up. It's a big deal. It's a 200-mile race, so it's multi-day, August 25th through the 29th. And they would like to be able to serve alcohol at their event. It will be at Green Waters Park. Very similar requests council has seen in the last couple months.
Okay, I have a motion.
I move to approve Go Beyond Racing's alcohol permit.
Second.
Made by Counselor Tarman, seconded by Counselor Hollett. Any discussion? Counselor Kenyon? One question for James. In the package, I didn't look like they had, but did they submit the noise residence list?
Well, two issues on that. One, the way I'm reading the application form, which I'd like to maybe make some changes to, most of the things they ask for, we ask for. They ask for the after approval by council, then provide the insurance and the OLCC license, et cetera. So no, they have not submitted a list, but there's some question as to whether or not they would have to, because when we did this before, there were a couple of residents, but they're not part of the city, right across the street, they're county.
So they're unincorporated.
Right. And so it may not even be applicable because we can't tell county folks what to do. And I mean, we could be nice, yeah. It's a short answer, no, but also they're not going to be very loud. It's
Okay.
they're estimating 100 feet.
Okay. Any other questions? Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor
Aye.
Hollett,
Which one did you say?
We'll say Hooker got that one.
right? Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
What's happening?
Oh, aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Okay, now we're down to the other tree planting festival, 9.13 for 2023 RTP funding and parade street closure requests. James?
All right. Okay, yes, this is for this year's tree planting festival. They are asking for $1,000 in RTMP funds. And the second part, and we need a motion to allow us to close the streets for the parade on Saturday, May 6th. Parade starts at 11 a.m. And there's a typo on here. We actually want to start closing the streets at 9 a.m., not 10 a.m. And there's a map included in council packet. Basically, the parade starts at the high school, goes down First Street, takes a right on Alder, right in front of City Hall here, a right on Commercial Street, and ends at the high school football field at Commercial and High.
Okay. I have a motion.
I have a motion. I move we approve the May 6th street closures on First Street and Commercial Street for the Tree Planting Festival Parade, and to approve 1,000 in RTMP funding to the Tree Planting Festival Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we'll call it made by Counselor Tarman, seconded by Counselor Kenyon. Discussion or questions? Staff. Great. Closures. Comments are good comments. Okay. Jackie, would you call for a vote on this, please?
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Moving on. 9.14, this is the well number 2 refurbishment project status and spending authorization. James.
All right, this one's relatively simple. The well number 2 refurbishment project ran into a minor issue that required them to spend 24 hours straight at $500 an hour cleaning it, which made us go over budget by about $12,000. So technically that needs council approval to do that. And if you have any technical questions, Rick can answer those.
All right, can I have a motion, please?
I move to allow the CA to sign the change order for change order number 3 for the $12,000 in extra costs incurred during the well number 2 refurbishment project.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Kenyon, seconded by Counselor Coker. Any discussion, questions about the issue? Counselor Kenyon.
Rick, I wanted to find out, it kind of sounds like maybe this has already been done.
Which part?
The
Yes, the
cleaning.
cleaning's been done. Yes.
Okay. So I think to clarify, at least it was my understanding that when the council made the request to have change orders brought to us, I think it was for prior to the work being done. That seems like the appropriate way to handle a change order. So I'm still, I mean, obviously we have to pay for it because it's been done, but I wanted to be able to clarify that.
Yeah, I guess I would just ask Rick about I'm guessing they had the whole thing torn apart. They realized the shortcomings and it was either stop work for 2 weeks to a month.
Oh.
Or
Correct.
and get the change order approved, or do it then and hope for the best. But is that right, Rick?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Carmen, did you have a question on this? That's it? Yeah. One question for Colleen. So this money, is it going to be added to the IFA loan, or is it within budget in the water fund, or how are you going to do this?
For the
Or to be determined?
Yeah.
Perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
The project's under a loan, is that what you're saying?
As a Business Oregon loan that was taken out, and it either would come out of that balance or it would come out of the water fund contingency. I guess.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions before we vote here? The motion was to allow the CA to sign the change order number 3 for $12,000 in extra cost incurred during the well number 2 refurbishment project. Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Yeah, who made the motion?
The
Counselor
motion was
Kenyon.
made by Counselor Kenyon and seconded by Counselor Coker.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next is 9.15. That's the Moose Lodge Easter egg hunt, Green Waters Park fee rental waiver, and TRT funding request. James?
All right, the Moose Lodge has stepped in to do what the Kiwanis used to do before they folded, and that is put on an Easter egg hunt for the kids. They want to use the Green Waters Park community building. The Easter egg hunt itself will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m. But they're going to set up the night before in the community building. So technically that would be 2 days of rentals, which would be a total of $160, but no one else is wanting to rent the building at this time. And then they're requesting $300 in TRT funds to help them cover some of their costs. And it should be noted that the city of Westford has already donated $300 for this event as well. So we're just matching what the city of Westford is doing. And Mr. Sargent is here as well from the Moose Lodge if you have any questions about this. And I think Councillor Hollett is also involved in this event. It's all been kind of last minute, but we really want to do something for the kids.
Okay. Can I hear a motion?
I move that we approve $300 in RTMP funds and the rental fee waiver request for the Moose Lodge's Easter egg hunt at Green Waters Park this weekend.
Okay, the motion was made by Councillor Kenyon, seconded by Councillor Coker. Any questions or discussion on this, or questions of Mr. Sargent? Councillor Kenyon?
I just wanted to clarify, just for the record, that I did change the wording in the recommended motion. It was recommended for TRT funds. And after a review of the two programs, I feel it's suited for the RTMP and not the TRT,
Any other
and
discussion,
qualifies.
questions? All right, the motion was move to approve $300 in RTMP funds and the rental fee waiver request for the Moose Lodge's Easter egg hunt at Green Waters Park this weekend. Jack, will you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
No.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
All right, motion passes. On to item 10, business from the city administrator. 10.1, volunteers needed for U.S. Disc Golf Championship, May 25 through 28. James?
Thank you, Mayor. This is basically just for information only. We have a huge disc golf tournament coming up May 25th through the 28th. It is part of the U.S. National Championship. They expect 500 players to participate and roughly an equal number of spectators as well. Again, 4-day national tournament. It'll be at the Circle Bar Golf Course. And they're going to need some volunteers. So I put a link on here and contact information for Jason Niemer, who's organizing this part of the tournament. So it's just information only.
Any questions, staff, before we move on? Okay, next is 10.2, and that's dispatch update, James.
All right. So getting back to our issue of securing dispatch services, council will recall we had an initial bid from Junction City for $100,000 per year. The chief of the Junction City Police Department has since retired, and a new interim chief, Larry Larson, has taken over on an interim basis. I know Chief Larson quite well, worked with him for a number of years, have nothing but good things to say about him. And I had a good meeting with Jason Knope, the city administrator of Junction City, and we started renegotiating the contract, and he offered us, and again, this is a tentative agreement. It's a draft agreement, and we're going to let Junction City's city council pass it first officially before it comes back to us. But right now, the tentative agreement is for us to start at just under $94,000 per year. So over the course of the 5-year contract, it would save us an additional $34,000 roughly. That's on top of the over 100,000 we would save compared to our current services. So what I'm asking for today is a motion that would simply allow me to continue negotiating this IGA rather than putting out the RFP that council requested I do the last time. And I held off on that because these negotiations restarted, and I felt that was our best option by far. So again, I have full faith and confidence in Chief Larson. And again, good talks with Jason Canope. I'm very positive that we can get things done. So that's what I'm asking for today. And if you have any questions, I might be able to answer them.
Can I hear a motion?
I move to approve the general terms of the new draft IGA with Junction City for dispatch services and allow the city administrator to finish negotiating the final version of the IGA before bringing it back to council for final approval.
I second.
Motion made by Counselor Kenyon, seconded by Counselor Hollett. Any discussion or questions of staff?
I just have a statement. I had a chance to speak with Chief Larry Larson. I'm super excited. I think he's really doing a fantastic job jumping in there, and he's excited to also, obviously, he's very aware of how police dispatch works, so he's really excited to kind of get into the fire and medical side as well. So have full confidence. Yeah.
Counselor Hooker.
Yeah, I worked many years ago when I worked at Junction City Police. I worked with Larry Larson, and he has just improved over the years. And I saw him again when I worked up here, and he didn't even recognize me as I didn't him, but I think we've got an excellent opportunity here, and I think he'll do us 100% the right way.
Thank you. Anything else, Counselor Kenyon or Counselor Coker? All right, the motion was moved to approve the general terms of the new draft IGA with Junction City for dispatch services and allow the city administrator to finish negotiating the final version of the IGA before bringing it back to council for final approval. Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Great, motion passes. On to 10.3, Water Quality Report 2022, James or Rick.
Yeah, just put this in for information that we got our water quality report back. It was all very positive. And we will be, it's been posted on our website and on the reader boards. We will send this out in the May water bills for folks to look at as well. But it's all very positive, and well, we just need to get that well number 2 back up and running for capacity's sake, but otherwise we're good.
May I hear a motion, or there's no motion,
motion.
sorry. Any questions of staff or Robert, who's online, I believe? Okay, moving on. 10.4 Lane County Community Needs Survey, James.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, just more for information than anything else, there is a survey put out by Lane County specifically for rural needs, and encourage people to take it. There are flyers at City Hall and also on the rack up there, and it's posted on the website, et cetera. So really, we should get our voices heard. The survey is open through April 30th. There's an additional survey from Food for Lane County where you can win a gift certificate, and that is about specifically folks in rural areas that have experienced food shortage in the past at any rate, at any level. So that's another important survey, and that one just came out, and both are available on our website.
Questions of staff on this? I encourage you to fill it out because Lane County's been very responsive to us, and they've got their ear to the ground. So please take the time to give them some feedback. All right, moving on. It's to 10.5, which is the Willamette Activity Center electrical panel bids update. James.
So I showed the WAC to 5 different electricians and just received the last of the 5 bids back. They're very different in the amounts, but the process went pretty well. I was hoping we would get 3 when we got 5 bidders. So I'll be proceeding with that. And I can tell you that the cost is actually under $5,000. We expected up to 10. So yeah.
Thanks.
May I ask a quick
Please.
question on that? So because of the low cost, does this bid process require a committee to review the applicants like we've done in others?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Still with you, James. We're a budget update or Colleen, one of the two.
Yeah, just wanted to bring to council's attention, we had to adjust the budget calendar slightly. That was due to what you have to, put the notice out of the first meeting. And since the Register Guard was bought out by USA Today or one of the national brands, all their advertising went national. So I had to contact the national office and they weren't able to get it out quite in time for the first plan meeting. So the first planned budget committee meeting is now Monday, April 17th. And we are expecting the draft budget to be out early next week. It will then be provided to budget committee, which of course includes all of council. So just wanted to give you an update on that. And the revised calendar is here. So basically all it did was it took out 1 budget committee meeting. We still have 6 though, up to 6 planned.
Any questions of staff? I see that Rick escaped. I'll ask the council, does anyone need a bio break?
Yes, please.
You might be aligned, but yeah, let's recess for 5 minutes. That's enough.
Yes.
All right, regular session's back in session at 7:58. And we're going to go on to 13.1, which is the ODAC Resolution 03-2023 first reading, James.
Thank you, Mayor. So we are revisiting the ODAC resolution, the new one. Again, there are 2 versions. Version 1 requires all members to live within city limits. Version 2 allows up to 2 members to live within the Oakridge zip code or the Westford zip code. So within the area. And again, that's just up to 2. Last week, ODAC met for the first time and they voted unanimously to recommend that council adopt version 2. That is also the staff recommendation. And then just as a reminder, the Chamber of Commerce at the last meeting also recommended version 2. I can speak to the staff recommendation. I think it's appropriate to allow up to 2 members from the area, because there are folks that happen to live outside city limits, but still have businesses here, still are much part of the community. And I'll remind council that they are still the gatekeepers. Every person that applies for the committee has to be approved by council. So if someone from New York City tries to join our committee, well, they wouldn't be in the zip code.
In the three- You have to be in the 3 zip codes, right?
Well, correct. Gatekeeping and a question as to where do they really live. Again, council could ask them that question. So
Okay, before I call for a motion, I recommend that you take a look at it, because you have to reword it, because what we're really doing here tonight is going to the first reading, not adopting and approving. So if you're interested in making a motion with whatever version, you need to go to the first reading. Not adopt. And given that, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve and adopt version 2 of the revised ODAC resolution 0320.
Well, we second. I just said it.
Yeah, sorry, it just sunk in.
Yep.
Okay.
So, would you like to reword?
Okay. Wait, we're just going to approve.
We're going to approve the first reading.
Approve the first reading.
right.
I move to approve first reading version 2 of the revised ODAC resolution 03/2023.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay. Motion was made by Counselor Tarman, seconded by Counselor Hollett. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, I'll just say discussion. This is just for public transparency. My opinion is different on this committee because of a lot of the reasons that James mentioned than my opinion on the admin committee. And the admin committee is because that committee works on policies, ordinances, and resolutions that only affect the citizens of Oakridge. So there is a difference in my head. So I just wanted to let everybody know why I feel differently on this committee.
Any other discussion, comments? Okay, the motion on the table is to move to approve the first reading of version 2 of the revised ODAC resolution 03-2023. Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
what was that?
It's an aye.
Aye, okay. Counselor Coker.
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Okay, and before we leave, we need to actually conduct the first reading. So do we have a volunteer or someone want to do that?
I would normally volunteer, but kind of lost my voice a little bit.
Okay, I can do that then. Let me find it. It's right, I got it right here. Okay. City of Oakridge Resolution 03-2023, a resolution repealing and replacing Resolution 16-2020, the City of Oakridge Economic Development Advisory Committee. Whereas the City of Oakridge Council desires to repeal and replace the previous Economic Development Advisory Committee resolutions, the previous ODAC operating guidelines, and whereas the purpose and scope of the Oakridge Economic Development Advisory Committee, ODAC, is an advisory body to the City Council and the city staff by providing recommendations concerning economic development within the City of Oakridge to improve the economy. Now, therefore, be resolved by the Oakridge City Council as follows. Section 1, establishment and membership. The Oakridge Economic Development Advisory Committee is hereby established. The committee shall consist of 7 voting members, 6 citizens at large, at least 4 must reside within Oakridge city limits, up to 2 may reside outside city limits, but but must live within the 97463 or 97492 zip codes, and one city councilor who will only vote in the event of a tie. Non-voting members, city administrator, community development director, and chamber of commerce representative. No staff member may apply as a voting citizen if they are assigned to the committee as a non-voting member by the city administrator or per resolution. The committee will, at its first reading in January each year or at any point in the year by simple majority, vote, elect a chair, vice chair, and a secretary from the voting and non-voting members. Section 2, term. Citizen at large of the committee, citizen at large members of the committee shall be appointed for 3-year staggered terms. Members may be appointed to a seat for less than 3 years if an appointee is filling a vacant seat in which a previous member resigned. The city council representatives shall serve for their elected term. Seat appointments will follow in the outlined years. 1 and 2 is January 21, January 24, January 27, January 30, 2030, January 2033, January 2036, and January 2039. Seats 3 and 4 turn over in January 2022, January 2025, January 2028, January 2031, January 2034, January 2037, and January 2040. Seats 5 and 6 turn over January 2023, January 2026, January 2029, January 2032, January 2035, January 2038, and January 2041. And seat 7 is the councilor elected term. Section 3 is a quorum. Quorum must be present in order to convene. 4 voting members of the committee shall constitute a quorum. A simple majority vote from the voting members in attendance at the meeting of the committee shall be required to take any action. Section 4, responsibilities. The responsibilities of the Oakridge or the Economic Development Advisory Committee should be as follows. Regular meetings of the committee should occur monthly. Special meetings may be called by the chair with appropriate notice. No decisions will take place outside of committee meetings. Committee members shall receive no compensation, but shall be reimbursed for duly authorized expenses after prior approval from the city administrator. Committee shall have no authority to obligate the city for payment of any sums of money. No member of the committee shall participate in any committee proceedings, action, or vote in which any of the following has a direct or substantial financial interest: member of the spouse, brother, sister, child, parent, father-in-law, mother-in-law of the member, any business in which a member is then serving or has served within the previous 2 years, or any business with which a member is negotiating for or has an arrangement or understanding concerning prospective partnership or employment. Any active or potential conflicts of interest shall be disclosed at commencement of the meeting at the committee where the proceedings, action, or vote is being taken. When requested by the city council or city administrator, the committee will assist in the vetting process of specific projects and leads. The city administrator will delegate tasks to the committee members individually and confidentially. All members' vetting notes shall be marked confidential with the member's name and date. All notes shall be turned in the city administrator for confidential record keeping and will not be made available or released to the public. When ready, the ODAC committee shall hold an executive session under ORS 1926602E to deliberate over their findings and come to a consensus for their recommendation to the city council. City administrator will then draft a written recommendation to take to the city council in executive session or regular session as appropriate at his or her discretion. Other activities within the scope of the committee as assigned by the city council. Keep records of minutes for each meeting per ORS 192.650. An annual report will be completed in the 4th quarter of the calendar year. Reports or recommendations of the Oakridge Economic Development Advisory Committee shall be in writing, considered advisory in nature, and shall not be binding on the city council. Section 5, conduct. All members are expected to attend meetings regularly, support the ODAC when requested, and abide by the Oakridge City Charter, Oakridge Code of Conduct, Resolution 18/2015, and this resolution. Member of the committee may be removed from the committee by the city council for misconduct or non-performance of duties at the request of the committee members via a simple majority vote. A voting member who misses 3 consecutive meetings without reasonable cause shall be considered non-performing. Absences known in advance should be communicated to the chairperson as soon as possible. Resolution becomes effective 30 days after it is passed by the council, and the signature blocks. Here we go. First reading complete. Moving on to 13.3 surplus properties resolution 05/2023 first reading. James.
All right,
Uh,
so that's counts.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
never mind. I'm sorry. I'm out of order.
Oh, that's right. As council may recall, at the authorized me to officially put the list of properties in the surplus list into a resolution. And so I've done so, created resolution 5-2023, which has all of the properties council has approved to be surplus. And simply need first reading on this resolution.
All right. Again, the motion needs to be a little more specific, but is there a motion that can be made?
I move to approve the first reading of resolution 05-2023.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Kenyon, seconded by Councilor Coker. Discussion, comments, questions? Councilor?
Just wanted to say I'd be willing to read this one if you'd like.
Any other comments? All right, Jackie, call for a vote, please. Let me state the resolution one more time. Move to approve the first reading of resolution 05/2023. Okay. Jackie, call for a vote.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin.
Aye. All right, motion passes, and Councilor Kenyon, you've kindly volunteered to read, so have at it.
There's going to be a lot of numbers, just forewarning you. Resolution 05-2023 declaring certain property surplus. Whereas the City of Oakridge staff and the Oakridge City Council have reviewed all of the parcels currently owned by the City of Oakridge, and whereas the Oakridge City Council has determined that these parcels listed below are not necessary for the continued operation of the city. And whereas the City Council will consider any reasonable offers for properties individually or collectively and must approve any potential sales. Now, therefore, the Oakridge City Council does hereby declare the following city-owned properties as surplus to the city purposes and intents. So now we have several columns. The first column is property commonly known as, and then there's the address, and then the map and tax lot number, then zoning, and the last column is acres. And I'll just read across and then down.
Would there be, and you have an objection to just reading the commonly known as name and dispensing, because the numbers aren't going to mean much to anybody unless you're writing them down.
That's true. I'm okay with just reading the names.
Sounds good.
Good.
Please.
Okay, the first one is the old Public Works shop. And then Highway 58 across from Ray's. There's a property on Douglas Street, commercial east where the Cattery is. Sanford North Old Reservoir, Sanford South, Sanford East, Sanford and Hialeah, Hialeah East, Norquist and Old Water Tank, rail line at Beach, rail line north at Beach, Little Texas, Fish Hatchery Residential Yard, north of Dunning Road, OIP Lot 7, OIP Lot 15, OIP Lot 18, OIP Lot 19, OIP Lot 20, OIP Lot 21, OIP Lot 22, OIP Lot 23, OIP Lot 25, OIP Lot 31, OIP Lot 37, and OIP Lot 38. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect 30 days after its enactment, passed by the city council on this day and approved and signed by the mayor of Oakridge on this day.
Thank you, Councilor Kenyon. And for any of the public, if you do want further information on any of these lots, there's a copy of the resolution at City Hall. It has the tax lot number that can correlates to the Lane County map where you can go right to it and identify the property, and it'll give you the description of it and the size and everything else. So thank you for that. All right, moving on, we're 13.5, which is Willamette Activity Center Future Uses Resolution 07/2023, first reading.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, so a resolution was drafted to help us apply for certain grants. The resolution's pretty simple. It simply establishes that the primary future use of the building after it's been renovated will be for social and community service organizations and services. It just makes it clear for grant writing that, because there are certain grants that we may be applying for that are geared for social services, and those organizations providing the funds want to make sure that those funds will be used for those purposes, and we're not getting money saying it'll be for social services, but really we're going to rent the building to Walmart or something like that.
I have on our agenda that we're looking at the resolution for the smoke safety.
Sarah said because of time considerations, she's willing to do that next meeting.
Oh, okay, I apologize.
So do I hear a motion for this resolution? And again, it's the first reading, not adoption.
I move to approve the first reading of resolution 07-2023.
Second.
Okay, that works. Just there's more to the recommended, but that's fine.
Oh, I
That gets the job
apologize.
done.
I didn't have that.
You can either keep it that way or you can restate it.
I don't have the one to read, so I'll just withdraw my motion and
Okay.
then someone else can.
I move to approve the first reading of resolution 07-2023, establishing the purpose and future uses of the WAC.
Okay, motion was made by Councilor Tarman and seconded by Councilor Hollett. Any questions of the staff on this?
Discussion, James presented this to the back committee. We read through it and everybody was in agreement to recommend that council pass this. We even went through our list that we've talked about a few times at council, and we made sure that, I don't want to say made sure, we looked through the list and everybody that's on our list of tenants, potential tenants, fall under that community anyway. So they're.
Yeah, and it will help the other committee that's doing the kind of the grant work to really qualify better for these grants, particularly in the kind of the food box area, you know, and the housing area. So, all right. With that, any other discussion? Okay, the motion was to move to approve first reading of resolution 07-2023, establishing the purpose and future uses of WAC. Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Counselor Tarman,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Coker,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Let's see, I've got it here. Oh, pretty short. First reading, resolution numbers 07-2023, a resolution establishing the purpose and future uses of the Willamette Activity Center. Whereas the city of Oakridge City Council desires to establish the purpose and intended future uses of the Willamette Activity Center Whack. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council as follows, whereas the Willamette Activity Center is a city of Oakridge, the typo there, James, owned and operated building located at 47674 School Street, Oakridge, Oregon. And whereas since it has been used by the city of Oakridge, the primary purpose and use of the building has been for social and community service organizations and services. And whereas the intended primary future use of the building after it has been renovated shall remain for social and community service organizations and services. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect 30 days after its enactment, passed by the city council on a certain day and signed by the mayor on a certain day. All right. So we have 11 minutes, and I think we can. You have something?
I don't.
I think we can let Councilor Coker actually prepare for her update. We can go through the committees.
Actually, I did, but it did not save on my notes. So see, I stuck my foot in my mouth there.
No worries. We'll go through these really quickly. And again, if you didn't have a meeting, no is just fine. So first will be 11.1 Parks and Community Services Committee. I don't see Rick here.
I can do it here.
Okay.
Hold on, pulling up the. Okay, so we met on March 13th. So we discussed the kiosk at Banner Bank, working on getting some more quotes. And I'm drawing up some better plans because that's been kind of an issue with getting good quotes. We reviewed the TMDL Stormwater Annual Report. Went over Horton Park Community Champions meeting update, looking at smaller groups to discuss more. Big Osprey going to increase the number of, or proposing to increase the number of disc baskets at Osprey Park. Talked about citywide recycling and reserve enclosure for the water bill that goes out June 1st, inform citizens of big events in our parks in June.
Great. Any questions of Councilor Tarman? Okay.
Just a comment that that's a really good idea to notify the community about upcoming events.
Yeah, no, everybody was like, that's a great idea.
And we also have a brand new reader board. That can do the same.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
too. And that'll help too to drive even tourism.
All right, Public Safety Committee, Councilor Coker, from memory.
All right. Yes, for the part. I'll go through the part, James, where I was in service, and then if you don't mind stepping in the part that I kind of lost, if you remember. So we met, I believe it was the 28th of last month, and it was my first actual full meeting, but I did lose service through half of it. We discussed reenacting a neighborhood watch program within the city, citizens of the city, and kind of getting people out to be like watching, looking around, watching around and stuff. Although I did come up with something that was against that, simply because we had tried that in the past and people took it too far. So we're going to revisit that again and see where it'll go from there. That's all I had, James. I don't know what else we spoke of.
The other big piece was that we have folks on the committee looking into starting a community service program to make that available to the municipal court judge, who is very supportive of the idea as well. So we're looking into what other cities are doing and looking at their policies. We have folks willing to run the program. We just need to find out how we need to make that happen legally. And we will be bringing some proposals to council eventually, but it should take a few months to get that ironed out.
Thank you. Councilor Kane, the next 2 years, that's Audit and Charter Review Subcommittee.
Sure. I just wanted to add a quick note for you, Councilor Coker. The Lane County has what do you call that? The program, the Neighborhood Watch program. I have spoke with those people before, and they would be excellent resources for you to contact about the program. I can get you the info if you want.
If you would, I'd appreciate it.
So on my committees, the audit is first, and we decided not to hold our meeting this month because it was on a Monday and we were expecting to receive the audit from the auditors on Tuesday. So we were gonna reschedule once it was received. And I haven't actually confirmed. Is it here? Okay. So that was last Tuesday. So maybe it'll come this next week. But anyway, we'll be meeting as soon as it does come and then bringing it forward to council. The next charter review subcommittee is a really simple update. Ongoing review of the charter. It's a fun and long process. And so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Counselor Kenyon, on that? Next one is Budget Committee. Really, the thing I need to know is the new date of the first meeting, number one, April 17th, and the release of the proposed budget by the city administrator shortly before that. Library Board, Counselor Hooker, do you have anything on the library board you guys meet? May have dropped. Had a problem. Okay. We'll get her if she comes back. Counselor Kenyon, I don't think you've met RTMP TRT.
No, but we will soon.
That's
We
right,
have a
that's
quorum
right,
now.
good. That's good.
Woohoo.
Rick isn't here. Planning Commission is next. I don't know. Did you attend that, James, or not?
We didn't have a planning commission last month, but planning commission met yesterday and today as part of these
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, it was, yeah, the joint session was great for have the Planning Commission there and taking it all in. Councilor Hooker, Library Board, anything to report, or did they meet?
Yes, actually, my first one, it was held on March 14th. They went over how they're going to be handling complaints, concerns process at the counter for both. They've set June as their spring cleaning and June 17th as a book sale and a raffle. And the next meeting will be May 9th at 5:15.
Great, thank you. Any questions, Councilor Hooker?
I would just suggest maybe if that information about those events could also be added, or were you talking about including all kinds of stuff?
Yeah,
or just-
initially it was, let people know about upcoming events, bus fair, gravel grinder, etc. So, etc.
Yeah, stuff like that. Okay, good.
Also
Thanks.
use reader board, potential use food box, blah, blah, blah.
Great. 11.9 is ODAC. They did meet. They had their first meeting in a very, very long time. James, can you recall the elected officers?
Yes, Rusty Ackland was elected chair, JT Flowers vice chair, and Kelly Winant secretary. And they also decided that they want to have their meetings on the third Tuesday of every month at 5 p.m.
Great. Yeah, and it really was, since it's been so long, really was kind of an organizational meeting. So that was great. Next is Special Fire District Subcommittee. Councilor Hooker.
She actually asked me to give an update on
Okay,
that.
sure.
We had a presentation from our feasibility consultant, Steve Abel, and we also met with the county assessor's office and looked at what the compression is in each area. And it really turns out that the city of Oakridge is not up against compression and that there is room there also with Hazeldale. However, West Fur isn't in as great as a spot as the city, which I think we all kind of know that. So he gave a presentation just kind of on the status of each area, where their taxes are, and then the status of emergency equipment. And we talked about 4 options. One was status quo, stay as we are. Other one was merge into the fire district that already exists, which is the Hazeldale, or a fire authority, which is a 190 IGA agreement from all entities, or also create a brand new fire district. Those are the three options we discussed, and there's going to be, I'm sorry, 4 options, and there's going to be another presentation at the next meeting, which will be the end of this month.
Great. Any questions? Thank you. With council's permission, we extend about 5 minutes to get the rest of these committees.
Yeah, and public comment.
Next is admin committee.
So the admin committee is actually was not meeting for the last month because we did not have a quorum. As of today, we do. So we will be meeting
Very good.
very soon.
Next is the WAC subcommittee, city council committee.
And I can report on that
Okay.
one too. We talked about the resolution that James already brought forward, and we discussed the 3 architects. We are going to do the scoring process with those 3 architects, and we are submitting our scores to James, and hopefully we will have a recommendation by the first meeting in May, correct? Before. Yeah. Yeah, there's a possibility we'll be doing actual face-to-face interviews with the 3 applicants.
The thought is to get this architect on the hook and get the work done this summer during the good season.
We're hoping.
Yep.
We'll do a quick.
Next is the WAC funding committee, which is the one approved by city council, but actually falls under South Willamette Solutions. And we did meet. We've been working pretty hard. There were 2, actually 3 congressionally directed spending sort of opportunities, 2 at the federal level, one with Representative Foyle and the other with the senator was leading the charge. They both did it together. So it was the Senate version. And then there was also the Christmas tree bill, they call it, which is an appropriations bill at the state level, which we submitted, and they all kind of matched. So hopefully we'll have some luck with that, and it'll round out the 1.5 million the city already has, to let them continue to do the rest.
Can you answer any questions
Sure.
on that? Is there any type of matching funds for any of those grants you're applying for?
Yeah, the 1.5 counts as a match.
Oh.
So at least for the state.
Mhm.
Federal, I'm trying to remember, there's a match there, isn't there, James? I think there is.
There might
But,
be.
that would be another thing we'd have to find, go in search of yet another grant that's not federal.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's all the committees. And we're down to public comment, I believe. Yep. Anybody on the Zoom? It looks like Rusty. Would you like to make a public comment, or is this part of your committee?
Nope, I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
So thank you, Rusty Ackland, 48265 East Commercial. Kind of a question. I guess I'm a little disappointed in tonight that we did not get to elect Counselor Tarman into the ODAC committee. Seems like I don't quite understand why there was not a motion made for that. It would be nice for us to have somebody on that committee, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be a good candidate for that. So maybe that can be enlightened as to why there wasn't a motion to elect him to that committee. So just my 2 cents worth. I just think it would be nice to have that position filled so that we can move forward. So that's all.
Thanks, Rusty. Anyone else on the Zoom have a comment? Anyone in the room? Is there a motion to adjourn, or do you have?
I actually have a question based on Rusty's comment. Are we allowed to make a a motion that would go against your recommendation on that committee?
You're allowed to approve or disapprove my recommended appointment.
So as long as you don't change your recommendation, we won't have a person
Or
if
you
we don't.
decide that Counselor Tarman is qualified to fill that position.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, anyone?
I'll
Motion to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
All right. adjourn at 8:34. 1 minute to spare.
Oh, Mayor, here's